Hey, this is Anthony Ceseri with SuccessForYourSongs.com, and in this interview I'm going to be talking to Sarah Popejoy, who's a songwriter who lived in Nashville for 10 years, writing and touring, and she also hosted an online acoustic music show called the Musicians Empowered Song Hour. And you can learn more about her at her website, which is musiciansempowered.com. Sarah, thanks for talking to me today.
Thank you so much, Anthony, for having me on the show.
Yeah, you got it. Well, what about writer's block? What do you do, or do you get writer's block, and what do you do, if you do get writer's block to get rid of it, to get new ideas despite it?
Well, there's a few things that I like to do. I have found that I do believe, though, too, that if there's if there's something kind of not right going on in your life, I have found it difficult to write. I know that sounds totally whatever, but and sometimes that's something that we need to address, I believe. But then also, just there's this book called The Artist's Way, and I really recommend it to songwriters or artists of any kind, because it's just really great for filtering out what is your blockage, And, it's a process book. It's like a 12-week steps. You read a chapter a week. But I've known a lot of really great artists who've read that book and really enjoy it as well, by Julia Cameron. But anyways, but then also one thing that I recommend is just sometimes I'll just start writing words on a page and just writing, and just with no criticism. I think a lot of times when we have writer's block too, it's because we're trying to be the editor or the critic to our writing, and we just need to let that go and just kind of free flow and not worry whether or not it's good or bad, but just write.
Well, I think like in a free write, like what you're talking about, probably a lot of times what happens is that stuff that you were talking about a little bit earlier that hasn't quite come out yet could potentially come out then. And then, because I think I went through a phase earlier on where, are you familiar with Pat Patterson's Writing Better Lyrics book?
No.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great book just for structuring your lyrics, and it really gets into details about very specific things about lyric writing. And one of the things he talks about in there is called object writing, which is sort of a specific way of doing free write. Like you set a timer for 10 minutes and you write just based on your five senses on a particular object, and just try and really get detailed with the touches and the smells and how things feel and stuff like that. And for a while, and I still believe in that as an exercise. I think it's a great way to become more sense bound, which obviously helps your songwriting. Mm-hmm. But I think for a while, I was so into that when people told me oh, you should do free writing, I was just like, come on, that's just there's no structure to it. What's the point? But I think now in thinking more of how you were talking about having these ideas that go in your head, free writing is just a good way to be able to extract stuff that might be floating around in there, and like you said, without judgment. Just if you're kind of totally stuck, it's just a good place to start. And then you can take some of those ideas and maybe object write on them to get more specific, and then start to really take it and turn it into a more detailed song.
Right.
So, but
sorry about my dogs.
Yeah, it's okay. So what to the Artist's Way? I know a lot of artists have recommended that. That's not specifically for songwriting. That's really for just any creative arts, right?
Right.
So what kind of process is that taking you through, that book?
Would you say what kind of process?
Yeah, how is that, before you read that, if you're looking to get ideas from that book, how is that, what process is that gonna bring you through to help you develop more ideas?
Well, and I don't know necessarily that it specifically was took me to let me just explain or backtrack here a little. Basically, what it does is it gives you exercises to just kind of open up, just to kind of almost be kind of childlike, I guess, so that more of your creativity shines through. I remember I started reading that book, and like I was really blocked and could not write. And in 1 week, I wrote 5 songs that were, went on my next album. So it just, I don't know. I can't really explain it other than it's more like it doesn't necessarily seem like songwriter or artist type things, but I think it's more just getting to that childlike creativity and doing little exercises that it has you do that, all of a sudden you're not so hard on yourself and judging yourself, I think is what it kind of does.
Yeah, that's cool. And actually, it sounds like it's the type of thing where it'll just get you in the right mindset to be more open to certain ideas. Whereas if you're just going through your daily life every day and trying to make time to write songs, and then when you do get a chance, you just get frustrated and you don't know what to do, as compared to doing things that help you draw out ideas and help you just be more creative in general. That's why I like the idea of having exercises that you can do to tap into that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's really neat. I'm gonna look into that book.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Pat Patterson.
Yeah, Pat Patterson. Yeah, I'll send you a link for that, because I found that was like the first thing that got me into learning about songwriting. So I liked it because it was just very specific about its approach to lyric writing, which I needed at the time, because I had no no idea about it. So that kind of got me rolling. But so what about getting feedback on your songs? Do you typically like to get feedback on your songs before you finish writing them?
Um, sometimes we would share with each other, but for the most part, when I was in Nashville, we were doing a lot of the open mics, especially going to the Bluebird Cafe in Nashville. And then it was funny because we just kind of like, we'd go to 2 or 3 of them. And I think what was great about that is not only could we hear each other's songs and give feedback, but anytime you're doing a live performance like that, and open mic is really great for, in a way where you're not actually like touring or performing a whole bunch of songs, but you can kind of get feedback from the audience just in how they respond to your song. Sometimes if you're, it seems like they're not really catching on, or if they're getting bored, you can pick up on that vibe really quick. And I think that's really also what helped make me a stronger songwriter, was just doing those open mics. I did them religiously for like a year at the Bluebird.
I think that's a really important point, because if you just wait until it's time for your actual performances, and you haven't been performing that much, it could just be so easy to go cold on them. And open mics are just a great way to stay fresh, like to have performing be a more normal situation for you, which makes you more comfortable on stage. And then at that point, when you are doing your actual performances, it's just easier. Even if you're someone who performs with like a full band, like a rock band or something, you could still go to an open mic by yourself, just with your acoustic guitar, and that really help you then when you're with your band, because if you could do it by yourself and get over your nerves and stuff that way, then playing with your band should be even easier. But also, like you said, having the sense of community with open mics, I think, is great. You sort of touched on that with being in Nashville as well, like being immersed in this community of songwriters. Even if you're somewhere else, I mean, finding the open mics that are in your area and going to them frequently, and setting a time to go, whatever, once a week or however many times you want to go a month, but just making sure you do it. You'll start to meet other songwriters and be able to network more, and just get better at performing in general. And then, like you said, you can learn from what other performers are doing. If you see people doing stuff that you like, you can use that stuff yourself.
Right, and just seeing what chords they're using, even. I mean,
yeah.
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, totally. So, what do you think songwriters should keep in mind as far as lyric writing goes? Like, what do you think goes into making lyrics that are strong?
Um, well, I think number one, it's always the connection, and that's why, like like I said about the open mics, you can find out really quick if you're connecting or not. But with lyric writing, there's what an exercise that I used to do, which I would recommend to anyone who's songwriting a lot, is I would I found songwriters who I thought were extremely talented, and I just started listening to their CDs over and over and over again. It's a little different from actually listening to an artist who doesn't songwrite, because you're getting all different songwriters. But when you get an album of one songwriter, and you can study their stuff, you can pick up on where their strengths are. So I used to do this with I used to pick a few songwriters that I really liked, and I would listen to their album over and over and over again. And I started to learn, pick up on things like, for instance, I used to listen to Mary Chapin Carpenter a lot, and she was really, really good at storytelling. I also noticed that in a majority of her songs, she used almost all five senses. In quite a bit of her songs, she did that. I also just in lyric writing, also think a lot of times there's things that you can do that are tricks that you learn in poetry that can also like, for instance, like alliteration,
Right.
things, different things like that you learned in English. And there's some artists who just are really good at using it. So I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds like if you listen critically, um, or maybe to the point where you listen and when something touches you or hits you emotionally, then you can backtrack from there and as a songwriter say, well, wait a minute, like what were they doing there that made me have these feelings? And then you can start to, back up, figure out what it was, and then incorporate that stuff into your own music.
Right, right.
So, are there any songs that you think are beneficial to learn from a songwriting standpoint?
Well, there's one song that I'm a little partial to. That's probably one of my most favorite, song, just the way it was written. Mary Chapin Carpenter, and I know this is like a really old song, but it was called "This Shirt." And what was so interesting about the song is, like I said, she's really good at being descriptive, but she talks about and takes you through the story about how she's wearing this shirt, and the chorus is that she doesn't. It's got too many memories for her to throw away, and so throughout the entire song, she takes you through, you know, things that have happened while she was wearing this shirt, and I think any kind of unique perspective to me, I don't know. So that's one of the reasons why I like that song so much, is because it is such a unique perspective, a different way of saying something.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's cool. I think I think lyrics tend to be more of like a long term thing. Like they get you, they make you like fall in love with a song. Like if some lyrics can really speak to
Right.
you emotionally, as opposed to melody, which is kind of the opposite. I mean, a lot of melodies are just catchy and kind of hook you in, which I think is why a lot of the pop stuff doesn't have as strong lyrics as it does melodies, because they're just kind of trying to rope you in for radio play or something like that. But
Right.
if you can have a strong melody up front and then have lyrics, if you can figure out how to write lyrics that'll really just you know make a connection someone emotionally, like with what you just described, it's just a great way to have it be a song that just goes down as one of your favorites and you want to keep listening to in the long run. And it goes on like, oh, this is one of those songs that you have to be aware of and you tell other people about and that type of thing.
Right. Right. That's definitely.
Well, do you think there are some common like mistakes that you think songwriters make?
Oh yeah. I think one of the biggest mistakes is sticking on one song too long.
Mm.
um, in Nashville, rewriting is a big thing, and that can be good to, I guess, revisit something. And I just don't do that much. To me, I like to just write and write and write. And then, my rewriting process is while I'm in the song. And then at one point, it's finished. And I might perform it out and find that there's lines that need to be, this could be better, or this could be changed, or this could be moved up. But for the most part, I think it's not good to just stick on one song for like a month or two. I mean, I've known, artists who stuck on one song for months and months, or songwriters rather.
Yeah, I think that comes down to indecisiveness. Really, it's you want this thing to be so great, and then you can't even decide on what to do next. But you really just to be a great songwriter, I think you just got to keep writing. And whether you do rewrites, which, like you said, that's something that's considered important, especially like for Nashville writers and things and people like that. Or
Right.
even if you're just writing and you're not so heavy on rewriting, but keep moving forward with the music that you're creating. Don't just linger on one song for like years. You want to keep pumping
Oh yeah.
things out to be great at this.
Yeah, and like you said, the practice is what makes you a good writer. It's just doing it over and over and over again.
Totally, yeah. And what about melodies? We touched on lyrics a bit, but what do you think makes a strong melody? Because, like I said earlier, that's something that's important for actually drawing somebody in to your song. Are there things that you do that you're conscious of that you want to have happen when you're writing a melody?
Well, I usually like choruses that are usually a little bigger and stand out. I don't know if that's, but and just also a lot of my process too is I'll write a song, and then and I usually try to put bridges in there because I like how they kind of change up things, because
Right.
it's you're putting another melody in there, or another variation or whatever of things. Right. But also, I think a lot of my process too is I'll write a song, and just the words kind of tend to tell me how it's going to flow, along with the chords, of course. But then a lot of times I'll go back, and that is one thing I'll definitely change is the chords, especially for production wise. I'm thinking a lot about production when I'm putting my chords together in my melody, thinking about how it's going to play out with this sound, how it's going to sound in the studio.
So you're talking about for variation, changing the chords in different sections. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, like for instance, like I first learned this when I first went to the studio to record my first album in Franklin, Tennessee, at First Avenue Sound, and we did kind of like this pre-production thing, which was new to me at the time, and which was a very good process to go through, because he basically walked me through one of my songs I thought was my strongest song, and he's like, well, if we can change this or that. And so the chords got changed a little, not, just here and there, but just on, parts that would help build it, like changing up the way that a chorus ends, maybe rising instead of falling, little things like that.
Yeah, I think it's both the best and worst thing ever when somebody takes one of your songs and gives you all this feedback, and you were thinking like, oh, this was my best song, and then part of you was crushed because you thought you were doing everything perfectly, and you thought everybody else would see it that way. But at the same time, when somebody can show you things that work better, and then you realize that in the long run, and you're able to actually do the work on the song and now have this educated feedback, it's just so crucial to making you a better writer.
Oh, it really is, because I mean, and that was just like one song that I think that he really helped me pick apart. But I felt like he was helping me pick it apart because of the fact that it was my strongest song, and so just going through that process with him, by the time I came out with the next album, I had already done all that with all the songs because I had already gone through the process and knew what to do.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, I think you've given us some cool things to think about in regard to just writing better songs and being more creative. So thanks for taking the time to talk to me. Is there anything else that you want to mention before we wrap up? Any website plugs or anything like that?
No, just visit musiciansempower.com, I guess. We got a lot of great stuff there, and we also teach people. We talk about songwriting. We also talk about how to market your stuff as well, and online. So, and our goal is to help empower musicians to get their stuff out there.
Awesome. All right, great. Thanks again, Sarah. I appreciate it.
Anthony, thank you so much.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.